Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English story. I don't know when it started. This thing inside me that felt like a fire and a noose all at once. Maybe it was always there, smoldering, waiting for the right moment to flare up. Or maybe it was planted, seed by every well-meaning adult who told me I could be anything if I just work hard enough. You know, the kind of thing I'm talking about. Those little mantras that sound so good, so empowering, until you realize they're also a trap. Dream big. Never settle. Hustle harder. They're not wrong. Exactly. But they don't tell you the whole story. They don't tell you what it feels like to wake up at 3 a.m. Your heart racing because you're not sure if you're running towards something or just running away from the fear of being ordinary. I used to think success was a straight line. You pick a goal, you work toward it, and eventually, you get there. Simple, right? Except it's not. It's more like trying to climb a mountain while someone keeps moving the peak. You think you're almost there, and then you look up, and it's still so far away. And the worst part? You're not even sure if you want to reach it anymore. But you keep climbing anyway. Because what else are you supposed to do? Stop? Let everyone down? Let yourself down? I remember the first time I really felt it, the obsession. I was in college, and I had this professor who told me I had potential. It was like a drug. I wanted more of it. I want to be the person they all talked about, the one who defied expectations, who made it big. So I started pushing. Hard. I stayed up late studying, took on extra projects, said yes to everything. And it worked for a while. I got the grades, the internships, the praise. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like I was doing it for me. It felt like I was performing, like I was trying to prove something to everyone watching. And the more I achieved, the more I needed to achieve. It was never enough. I didn't realize how toxic it had gotten until I hit my first real failure. It wasn't even that big of a deal in hindsight. I didn't get a job I'd applied for. But at the time, it felt like the end of the world. I remember sitting in my apartment, staring at the rejection email, and feeling like I'd been stripped of everything that made me me. Who was I if I wasn't successful? If I wasn't the best? I didn't have an answer, and that terrified me. That's the thing about toxic motivation. It doesn't leave room for failure. It tells you that your worth is tied to your achievements. And if you're not achieving, you're worthless. It's a lie. Of course. But it's a convincing one. And when you're deep in it, it's hard to see anything else. It took me a long time to climb out of that hole. And honestly, I'm still climbing. Some days are better than others. Some days, I feel like I've finally figured it out. Like I've found this beautiful balance between ambition and peace. Other days, I feel like I'm right back where I started, chasing something I can't even name. But here's what I've learned so far. In all its messy, imperfect glory, success isn't a destination. It's not a trophy or a title or a bank account. It's a relationship with yourself, with your work, with the world around you. And like any relationship, it takes work, it takes honesty, it takes forgiveness. I've also learned that there's a difference between being driven and being obsessed. Being driven feels like running towards something. Being obsessed feels like running away from failure, from judgment, from the fear of not being enough. And the thing about running away is that it's exhausting. You can't keep it up forever. Eventually, you have to stop. You have to turn around and face whatever it is you're so afraid of. And when you do, you realize it's not as scary as you thought. It's just life. Messy, complicated, beautiful life. I wish I could tell you there's a magic formula for finding balance, but there isn't. It's different for everyone. For me, it's been about learning to listen to myself, to my body, my mind, my heart. It's about recognizing when I'm pushing too hard and giving myself permission to rest. It's about understanding that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. And most importantly, it's about remembering that I'm more than my achievements. I'm a person, flawed and human and worthy, just as I am. I don't know where you are in your journey, but if you're feeling the weight of all those expectations, if you're wondering whether it's worth it, let me tell you this. It is. Not because of the success you'll achieve, but because of the person you'll become along the way. You'll learn things about yourself you never knew. You'll discover strengths you didn't know you had. And you'll realize that the real reward isn't reaching the top of the mountain. It's the view you get along the way. So keep going. But don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to live. And don't forget that you're enough. Right here. Right now. Exactly as you are. I didn't get better overnight. That rejection email wasn't some magical wake-up call that instantly changed my life. If anything, it sent me spiraling. I doubled down on the hustle, convinced that if I just work harder, faster, smarter, I could outrun the feeling of not being enough. I became a machine, efficient, relentless, and utterly empty. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating properly. I stopped calling my friends. I told myself it was temporary, that I was just grinding until I reached my goals. But the truth was, I didn't even know what my goals were anymore. I just knew I had to keep moving, because if I stopped, I'd have to face the mess inside me. And then, one day, I couldn't keep moving. My body gave out. I was at work, and suddenly the room started spinning. I thought I was having a heart attack. Turns out, it was just a panic attack, my first one. But in that moment, it felt like my entire world was collapsing. I remember sitting on the floor of the office bathroom, clutching my chest, trying to remember how to breathe. And all I could think was, this is what it's come to? This is what I've been working for? That was my breaking point. Not because I suddenly had some grand epiphany, but because I couldn't ignore it anymore. I couldn't pretend I was fine. I couldn't keep lying to myself. So I did the thing I'd been avoiding for so long. I stopped. I took a step back. And for the first time in years, I asked myself the question I'd been too afraid to ask. What do I really want? The answer didn't come right away. It took weeks of sitting with the discomfort, of untangling the knots I'd tied myself into. But slowly, I started to see the difference between what I thought I should want and what I actually wanted. I realized that a lot of my drive wasn't coming from a place of passion or purpose. It was coming from fear, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being ordinary. And while fear can be a powerful motivator, it's not a sustainable one. It burns you out, it leaves you hollow. So I started making changes, small ones at first. I started saying no to things that didn't align with my values. I started setting boundaries with work, with people, even with myself. I started carving out time for the things that brought me joy, not because they were productive or impressive, but because they made me feel alive. And slowly, something shifted. The fire inside me didn't go away, but it changed. It wasn't a wildfire anymore, consuming everything in its path. It was a steady flame, something I could tend to and nurture. I wish I could say it's been smooth sailing ever since, but that's not how life works. There are still days when the old habits creep back in. When I catch myself measuring my worth by my productivity or comparing myself to someone else's highlight reel. But now, I have tools to deal with it. I have a support system, people who remind me that I'm more than my achievements. I have practices, meditation, journaling, long walks that ground me when I start to spiral. And most importantly, I have a new definition of success. One that's not about reaching some arbitrary standard, but about living a life that feels authentic and meaningful. Here's the thing I've come to realize: success isn't something you achieve, it's something you create moment by moment. It's in the way you treat yourself and others, it's in the courage to keep going, even when it's hard. It's in the willingness to fail, to learn, to grow. And it's in the understanding that you are enough, not because of what you've accomplished, but because of who you are. So if you're out there, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, wondering if it's all worth it, let me tell you this: it is, but not in the way you might think. The real success isn't in the accolades or the milestones. It's in the journey. It's in the moments of clarity. When you realize that you're not chasing a dream, you're living one. It's in the connections you make, the love you give and receive, the person you become along the way. And if you're feeling lost, if you're not sure what you want or where you're going, that's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next step, and then the next one, and the one after that. Because life isn't about reaching some perfect, polished version of yourself. It's about embracing the mess, the imperfections, the beautiful chaos of being human. So keep going. But don't forget to take care of yourself. Don't forget to look around and appreciate where you are, right here, right now. And don't forget that you're not alone. We're all in this together, figuring it out as we go. The moral: the story's moral isn't a neat, one size fits all lesson. It's more like a collection of truths gathered through struggle and self-discovery. Success is a relationship, not a destination. It's about how you engage with your work, your goals, and yourself, not just about the outcomes. Toxic motivation burns you out. Genuine inspiration fuels you. Learn to recognize the difference between running towards something and running away from fear. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. It's through failure that we learn, grow, and ultimately succeed. You are enough, just as you are. Your worth isn't tied to your achievements. You are valuable because you exist, not because of what you do. Balance isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it's hard, and finding joy in the journey. The real reward is the person you become. Success isn't just about what you accomplish. It's about who you are along the way. I'm so glad you spent this time with me. If you like the story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Take care, and see you next time.